Hi, everybody. My name is Bennett. I'm with Apogee. You may have heard of us through School CEO. It's the first of its kind publication about all things K-12 communication. Super excited to be out here in Salt Lake City. You may have seen me around dropping by with some crumble cookies, or you may have just seen me at the conference. Either way, looking forward to getting to spend some time with you guys. Would love to set up some time to chat to show how we specifically help districts like yours. Feel free to click below to set up some time. Talk soon.
Hi, my name is Marie Cresson, and I'm going to really quickly walk through one of School CEO's presentations, The Power of Collective Authorship. I am one of School CEO's writers. School CEO is a marketing magazine. We were founded in 2018. We are a research and perspectives magazine produced by a small but mighty team of 5.5 people. One of our writers now has a lot of other responsibilities, but we're really proud of the content that we produce in School CEO magazine. And some of what we talk about today, most of what we talk about today, comes from past School CEO content. Also, before I jump into the presentation, I want to make sure that you know about our School CEO Spark newsletter. If you want, you can scan that QR code if it works on your screen, but you can also just go to schoolceo.com. Trust me, you'll be able to find where to subscribe. We've made it really easy because we really want you to be a part of our community. That newsletter will land in your inbox every other week. It offers questions, resources, and takes from both our research manager and our digital marketing manager, as well as our vice president of marketing sometimes. So you definitely don't want to miss out. All right, so we don't have much time today, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the conversation about collective authorship. So I told you that the title of this presentation is The Power of Collective Authorship, but what is collective authorship? To found this conversation, let's take a look at the difference between traditional marketing and new marketing in order to understand what collective authorship even means. So when you think about traditional marketing, you can think of something that looks a lot like Mad Men, right? Some dude in a suit comes in, talks to a bunch of other dudes in suits. They pitch ideas around. Maybe they're writing something up on a board. Maybe they're, taking notes in their briefcases. I don't know what dudes in suits carry, but you get it, right? There's this very traditional, very rigid format and structure. It's very top down. That's not necessarily the approach that is taken in marketing anymore, right? So think of brands like Stanley, for example. Stanley is a brand that, if you look at its history, probably never meant to market to a demographic that looks like me. And yet, this isn't even a stage. I just use this all the time. I have a Stanley Cup. Most women that I know have Stanley Cups. And that is because Stanley took a really interesting marketing tactic where they went from the bottom up, utilizing the power of influencers' voices, right? Getting their brand out there in social networks that do market to my specific demographic. So what I'm talking about here when we talk about traditional marketing versus new marketing, we're talking about flipping that approach, going from top down to bottom up. That bottom up approach is exactly what we mean when we talk about collective authorship. So let's look at another example. Wikipedia. Everybody loves Wikipedia, right? You're not going to convince me that you don't. I'm not going to weigh in as to whether or not it should be a source for English articles, or excuse me, I write articles, English papers that your students are writing, but I will say that it is a pretty remarkable phenomenon. Wikipedia is the #7 most popular website in the world. Last we checked, it was ahead of TikTok, Amazon, and LinkedIn. The only sites ahead of it were Google.com, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And what makes it even more incredible is that Wikipedia only has 215 staff members. Only 215. When you compare that to the other tech giants that it's up there ranking with, so for example, Google has 174,000 employees, and Meta, the parent company for Facebook and Instagram, has 66,000. Wikipedia has a measly 215 employees. Still, yet they see 541 new articles posted every single day. In total, about 60 million articles on their website. 60 million articles. That's one of those numbers that you can't quite make sense of, so let's put it in context really quickly. The New York Times, in its entire history, has produced 13 million articles. 13 million is a huge feat. The New York Times has existed since 1851. Wikipedia has 60 million. 60 million to the New York Times, 13 million. But Wikipedia has only existed since 2001. It came into existence 150 years after the New York Times. So 60 million articles, pretty incredible. Wikipedia also sees 345 edits per minute, which totals about 120, or excuse me, over 1 billion edits total. I have multiple screens here. You're going to have to excuse me. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that Wikipedia has 120,000 active volunteer contributors. That piece is what makes Wikipedia such an incredible example of collective authorship. Wikipedia may only have 215 employees, but they have 120,000 active contributors, people who are volunteering their time in order to create those page edits and in order to write that massive amount of articles that Wikipedia boasts. So the thing that we love about Wikipedia is that, much like what we were just talking about with old marketing and new marketing, taking that approach and flipping it, Wikipedia has turned an old maxim right onto its head, right? So you've heard the phrase that sometimes things work in theory, but not in practice. Wikipedia is an endeavor that works in practice, but not in theory, because it should have run amok by now, right? With 120,000 active contributors, it should be riddled with falsehoods. And yet it's not. How do I know? This here is, I'm pointing over here because this is where my other screen is, but I suppose it's probably on your screen. This here is a data breakdown of page views and page edits for Wikipedia's English-only articles. So for every editor, every active contributor, Wikipedia has over 23,000 unique readers. What that means is that every Wikipedia volunteer editor has a massively outsized influence. And so that is yet another reason why Wikipedia shouldn't work and why it should have run amok by now. But a researcher actually tested this. They tested Wikipedia's adaptability by deliberately introducing 13 errors into articles on the site. And we wouldn't recommend replicating this experiment just like for the sake of human decency, but for our purposes today, we're happy that the researcher did it. So they introduced those mistakes, and every single one of those mistakes was corrected within 3 hours. So they did a more subtle version of the experiment. They introduced sneakier errors and found that 1/3 to 1/2 of those errors were corrected within 48 hours. Again, Wikipedia has over 120,000 volunteer contributors, many of whom write anonymously. They're not paid to do this. They have presumably families and jobs and hobbies. So why does this work? It's not AI, it's not automatic. It's a human being doing this because they want to and holding other human beings accountable for doing it in the right way. It's collective authorship. So I've shared this example with you because I've been around the block a couple of times by now. Our team has conducted nearly 1,000 interviews with school leaders across the country, and the idea of collective authorship, which I'm about to dig into more and how it looks for schools, is often met with some understandable hesitation. What I'm going to suggest to you is that you relinquish control over some elements of your website to other members of the staff, that you invite them to be editors on your website and to have control over what they edit and what they post. And that lack of control can feel scary, but we talked today. You've seen an example of something that doesn't work in theory, but it does in practice. So just humor me. And for the next 8 to 10 minutes, I challenge you to accept that even if collective authorship doesn't sound like it should work, it just might. All right. So we talked through this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and, for the sake of time, move into what collective authorship can look like in action for school districts. And the school district that we're going to be looking at today is Saginaw ISD in Michigan, headed up by Dr. Jeff Collier. And now forgive me, I'm going to have to read the quote from the screen because I don't have it memorized. But something that Dr. Jeff Collier said to us that we really appreciated is that without a story, our communities don't understand who we are. When we don't capture the story, we aren't sharing the joy and inspiration of what happens in the classroom every day. Sure, I, Dr. Collier, can provide vision and delegate tasks because that's my job. But if I'm the sole author of our story, well, that's a pretty thin look? I wanted to share that quote to kind of found the rest of our conversation, because what I imagine is that a number of you, and I could be wrong here, in which case please email me and tell me, but I imagine that a number of you have a lot of control over the school district's website. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about what it would look like to share that authorship piece, to invite other members of the district to edit their own web pages, to upload their own content, so that the school district story can be broader and richer. That's exactly what Saginaw ISD did. And they did it with their Our Story initiative. So the Our Story initiative is a communications initiative at Saginaw ISD that could also be headed up by a tech team, depending on what your swim lanes are for the roles in your district. But essentially, Saginaw ISD designed this communications initiative to elevate the organizational narrative through the power of collective authorship, that phrase that I keep throwing around. The ISD serves 12 local districts and has an enrollment of approximately 26,000 students. So we worked with Saginaw ISD a couple of years ago in 2023, late 2023, to build this slide deck. And we have not annoyed them every single time that we've shared their story since then. And the reason that I share that is because it means that some of my numbers are going to be outdated. Saginaw ISD has only expanded this initiative and increased these numbers since we originally made this deck. So just keep that in mind. The collective authorship initiative, the Our Story initiative, is meant to empower every single staff member at Saginaw ISD to share one positive moment a day to tell our story. That's why it's called the Our Story initiative. So basically what they're doing is they're trying to get as many staff members as possible to share one positive moment a day by providing those staff members with access to the district's website. Editing access is what I mean. Of course, everybody can access the district's website. They're providing them editing access. And the reason that they're doing this is because they believe that everyone's story at the district deserves to be told, but it is impossible for an administrator, a communication specialist, a tech director to by themselves capture every magical moment. So, of their 600 staff members at the ISD, they now have what is now actually more than 146 unique authors. So they're looking at about 1 out of every 3 staff members being a unique author that has some element of moderated editing access to the school's website. Their goal is to get every single staff member involved. So they're not quite where they want to be yet, but we do think that even that amount of folks is pretty remarkable when most school districts really only have a handful of people who have editing access to the website. What that's turned into, with nearly 1 out of every 3 staff members having editing access, is they now have also cultivated this program where Saginaw educators are able to earn bronze level certification. So I've been talking about having moderated editing access. What did not happen? What did not happen is that they just gave the keys to the kingdom to anybody who wanted them. No, they required an element of training for their staff members to move through first in order to have that moderated editing access that allows them to upload content, to share stories, to make suggestions for the website. So the way that it works is the bronze level certification training teaches authors how to download, log in, and utilize the ThrillShare platform through a mobile app or desktop in order to share positive stories as they happen in real time at Saginaw ISD. After viewing the entry-level video module course that Saginaw administration has created, bronze level authors can utilize Saginaw ISD's comms platform and maintain access for 1 year. What that has turned into is 2,046 stories told by 2023. They are significantly more than that by this point. And I just want to be clear that the important detail here is not the number. In fact, it's important to note that these are first-hand stories, right? So we're not talking about alerts. We're not talking about updates. These are stories about things happening at the district. That's where we can recruit people who are having those first-hand moments to help build out the content for the website. That should not be the job of just one person. Just one person cannot do all of that work. And by the way, it's not necessarily your expertise, right? Your expertise is to be that back-end webmaster to make sure that everything is going the way that it needs to. When it comes to capturing photos and verbiage, why not let the folks who are having those firsthand experiences do that for you to take some of that off of your plate, some of that copy, editing, writing element, so that you can focus on the things that actually need your attention. So when I talk about these stories, what I'm talking about are things like this, right? Real world, again, I'm looking over here, real world people, real world events, real world stories that are happening in the district. And so there are numerous goals, right, for implementing an initiative like this, including improving organizational culture and climate, empowerment and engagement, collaboration and communication, building positive capital. But regardless of all of these goals, I said early on that I've been around the block a few times. I recognize that there's probably going to be hesitation when it comes to this idea of providing moderated editing access to the school's website. So just one thing that I want to add here before I move on and wrap things up is that in Saginaw's years of implementing this initiative, their comms specialist, her name is Cody. Cody came and talked with us at the school CEO conference just a few months ago. And Cody told us that in their years of doing this, in their years of what has now been cultivating 3,000, I think over 3,000 stories about their district, Cody has only ever had to say no to one story. So what I mean by that is folks have sent in their stories. Cody is their moderator. So when they send stories onto the website, those stories don't post immediately. Cody is the gatekeeper. Cody sees the stories on the back end, checks them, and then approves or disapproves them, sends them back, asks for clarification. Cody gets to be that moderator to make sure that the content that is going out to audiences is approved content. And in her years of doing this, the thousands of stories that have come her way, she has only ever had to disapprove one story. There have been times where she's had to ask for clarification or for a better photo, sure, but there has only ever been one story that she did not post. So again, I know it doesn't sound like it should work in theory, but it does work in practice. So before I log off here, I just want to leave you with one question. What would it look like in your unique role to empower other staff members in the district to tell the kinds of stories that would boost your traction as a website, that would improve your reach, that would garner more SEO capability without adding to your plate? What would it look like to empower the people around you to create web content for you? Because the fact is, you cannot be the only one creating that content. You don't have to make up stories or content, but you do want to share what's happening in your schools, and you do want to empower as many people as possible. If I still haven't sold you, if you want to talk to me about this more, if you have questions, or you just want to contact me and say that you think this idea is crazy, which I get, you are more than welcome to send me an email. My name is Marie. I'm one of the writers for School CEO. I hope to see your questions landing in my inbox soon. And I hope that you guys have had a great conference. Thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.